She'll pay everything. That's what my father said without even looking at me. And no one in the room flinched. Not my mother, who had once cried on my shoulder about overdraft fees. Not my younger brother, whose reckless investments I had quietly bailed out more times than I could count. They all just nodded. I didn't speak. I didn't cry. I didn't ask why. I simply stood up, pushed my chair back, and walked out without a single word. But what they didn't know was, I'd been preparing for this. For months. While they were counting on my silence, I was building my escape. While they saw me as their safety net, I had already cut every thread. They thought I left empty-handed. They had no idea I was finally taking everything back, starting with myself. They used to call me the good one. The responsible daughter. The strong one. The one who remembered birthdays, brought wine to Sunday dinners, and picked up the check. Just this once. Except it was never just once. It was every time. When I was 22, I put off graduate school to help cover my dad's surgery bill. When I was 27, I co-signed on a car loan for my brother Evan after he tanked his credit. When I was 30, I gave my parents $15,000 for roof repairs they said insurance wouldn't cover. I never saw a single receipt. And every time I handed over money, they said the same thing. "We're so lucky to have you, Athena. You're our rock." But I wasn't a rock. I was a slowly cracking dam. No one ever asked what I needed. No one noticed when I stopped smiling during calls. No one wondered why I never brought a +1 to dinner anymore. The truth? I was tired. Tired of being expected to say yes. Tired of carrying problems that were never mine to begin with. Tired of watching Evan stumble through job after job while my achievements were met with nothing more than an offhand, "Well, you've always had it easier." Easier? I built everything I had. I earned every dollar, every promotion, every hour of sleep I traded for stability. No one handed me anything. But because I didn't complain, because I just kept showing up, they assumed I was fine. That I had more to give. That I owed them more to give. I never confronted them. Not really. I just worked harder. Saved more. Told myself that one day, when things settled, I could finally rest. But things never settled. And deep down, I was starting to realize they never would. So, I began to change. Quietly. I stopped sharing my pay raises. I moved my savings to a new bank. I set up alerts for any credit inquiries tied to my name. I didn't tell anyone. I just watched. Watched as the calls came in less frequently when I wasn't offering to help. Watched how quickly the warm, "We miss you" messages faded when I didn't volunteer to cover someone's rent. Watched how invisible I became the moment I stopped being useful. I was no longer the good daughter. I was just the one who'd stopped giving. And in my family that meant I was a threat. The shift didn't happen all at once. It came in small, almost imperceptible ways, like a picture frame tilting slowly on the wall until one day, you finally notice it's off balance. It started with a strange voicemail from my mother. "Hey, honey, call us when you get a second. We need to, talk about something." No emergency, no context, just something. And something in her voice felt rehearsed, like she was trying to sound casual but couldn't quite pull it off. A few days later, Evan texted me. "Hey, you coming to dinner Sunday? We've got some stuff to run by you." Run by me? They never used that phrase. My family didn't run things by me, they just assumed I'd show up and help. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I did what I always do when I sense things slipping. I dug. I logged into my credit monitoring account. No red flags. I checked the deed to my condo still, solely under my name. Then, I opened my financial binder, the one I kept hidden behind the cleaning supplies under the sink. It was organized, color-coded, precise like me. Bank statements, transfer records, emergency fund breakdowns, a printed spreadsheet titled, "Unreturned Family Contributions." There it was, line after line. 5-0. Evan's tuition shortfall. 12-0. Mom's dental implants. 9, 700. Family emergency. Never specified. Total, 80, 1, 650. None of it ever came back. I closed the folder slowly, like shutting a coffin. The following Friday, my dad called. Athena, we're having a family meeting on Sunday after dinner. Just us, nothing serious. We just want to talk through a few things as a family. I stayed silent long enough that he added, we'll keep it short. Family meeting? That had never existed in our household. We weren't the type to sit around and talk. We were the type to shove issues under the rug and pretend they didn't exist. That's when I knew. Whatever this was, it wasn't casual. It wasn't a discussion. It was a setup. And I had a decision to make. Walk in blind like I used to? Or walk in ready? I chose something in between. That Sunday, I showed up with a neutral smile, a blank notebook, and a calm that wasn't real. I sat at the table like a guest in my own family. I listened. I waited. And when my father leaned back in his chair and said without hesitation, Athena can pay for it, I didn't blink. They had finally said it out loud. And I was done pretending not to hear. We sat in the living room like strangers dressed as family. Mom had made roast chicken. Evan drank soda straight from the can. Dad wore his favorite worn flannel, the same one he used to wear when I was little, and still believed he could fix anything. They chatted about meaningless things, traffic, the neighbor's new car, a coupon Evan found for winter tires. The longer it dragged on, the more certain I became. They were stalling. Then it shifted. Dad cleared his throat. Mom folded her hands. Evan leaned back like he was waiting for a presentation. Athena, my father began, like he was reading from a pre-approved script. Your brother's in a difficult situation, a lawsuit, some miscalculations. The details aren't important, but the amount is significant. He didn't meet my eyes. It's 210, 0, Evan said, like it was the weather forecast. I have 30 days before it goes to court. I didn't move. We've talked it over, Mom said quickly. And we think the best solution is for you to help. Just until Evan can get back on his feet. I waited. My father's voice came low and flat, like he'd practiced it in the mirror. She'll pay everything. Not could. Not maybe. Will. That was the moment. That single sentence unzipped something in my chest. I looked at each of them, not with anger, not even hurt, just understanding. Like I was finally seeing the full picture, one I'd been too loyal, too tired, or too hopeful to admit was real. They weren't asking. They had decided. Because in their minds, I wasn't Athena, the person. I was Athena, the provider, the bailout, the fallback plan. And when you've always been dependable, silence becomes consent. But not this time. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't explain how much they'd taken from me over the years. I stood up, tucked in my chair, smoothed my coat, and walked toward the door. Wait, Athena? Mom's voice rose behind me, brittle with confusion. I kept walking. Athena, can we just... I closed the door behind me before she finished. No slamming, no theatrics. Just an ending. I didn't go home that night. Not to the apartment with the framed family photo in the hallway. Not to the freezer full of lasagna I'd made for dinners. I was always too tired to eat. I drove for hours instead. No destination, just movement. Silence clung to me like fog. Not the cold, cruel kind. The clean kind, the kind that settles after a fire burns itself out. My phone buzzed. Mom, where did you go? Dad, we need to finish the conversation. Evan, seriously? You're just going to leave? I didn't answer. Instead, I parked in front of a quiet 24-hour diner. I sat with the engine running, my hands still on the steering wheel, and finally, I exhaled. They thought they'd cornered me. But they never noticed I'd already built the exits. For months now, I'd been moving my assets to banks they didn't know about. I'd created new passwords, added two-factor authentication, changed security questions to things they couldn't guess no more, mother's maiden name, or first pet. That night, I logged into every account I owned. Savings, investments, retirement funds. Click, transfer, freeze, lock. Then I pulled up the joint account I once opened to help Mom organize bills I'd left, 250 in it out of habit. Now it held 0. I changed my phone number, deleted shared calendars, removed location sharing. Every digital thread connecting me to them snapped. Then came the apartment. I packed a single suitcase, left behind the couch they'd guilted me into buying for Thanksgiving gatherings, took only what was mine. By sunrise, I was checked into a month-to-month rental across the state line, a small, clean loft, with no family photos, no memories pressed into the walls. It was quiet, not lonely, not sad, just mine. By the end of that week, the texts turned to guilt. We raised you better than this. Your brother is in trouble. This isn't how family works. And then came the plea that told me everything I needed to know. We don't have anyone else. Exactly. They didn't have me anymore either. The number was unfamiliar. I almost didn't pick up. I was sitting on the floor of my temporary apartment, folding the same 3 sweaters into a drawer I didn't plan to use for long. The room smelled faintly of new paint and old wood, a blank slate. But something told me it was him. Hello? There was a pause. Then, his voice. Athena. Just my name. No apology, no greeting, just that it meant something. I said nothing. Look, I get it. You're mad, Evan said. But this isn't just about you, okay? This is about family. There it was. That word again. The one they used like a net warm enough to sound loving, strong enough to trap. You didn't even say anything, he continued. You just walked out. You ghosted us. No, I said flatly. I walked away. There's a difference. You could have said something? You weren't listening, I cut in. None of you were. You'd already decided what my answer would be. You just wanted me there to nod and write the check. The silence on his end crackled like static. I'm going to lose everything, he finally said. Softer now. The apartment. The car. Maybe even jail time. You should have thought of that before you gambled with people's money. I didn't gamble, okay? You lied, Evan, I snapped. You lied to investors, you lied to Mom and Dad, and now you want me to clean it up. Again. His voice cracked. I'm your brother. I closed my eyes and opened the drawer. Neatly stacked sweaters. Nothing dramatic. Just order. Just mine. I know, I said. And that's the saddest part. You're really going to let me go to jail? I'm not letting you do anything, I said calmly. You made choices. I'm making mine. Jesus, Athena, he whispered. You used to care. I did. So much that I nearly emptied myself trying to fix everyone else's mistakes. And now? Now I care enough to stop. He didn't speak for a long time. I imagined him sitting somewhere with his head in his hands, still thinking this was a phase, still believing I'd crack. Please, he said, voice raw. I'm begging you. I looked out the window. Early evening. A row of maple trees swaying outside. No one knew I was here. No one could reach me. And for the first time, I felt it not relief, not pride. Peace. I already told you, I said quietly. Don't beg me. Beg someone else. And I hung up. This time, I didn't cry. This time, I didn't feel guilty. This time, I didn't feel like the bad daughter. I felt free. It arrived on a Thursday. I was packing up my laptop at the co-working space I'd been using downtown. The receptionist's voice came through the intercom. Athena Monroe, someone from legal is here for you. A process server. I froze. Not because I didn't know what was coming, but because part of me still hoped I was wrong. He handed me a manila envelope. No eye contact. No words. Just a scribbled signature and a quick exit. Inside, a formal civil complaint, filed by Frank and Meredith Monroe, my parents. They claimed the money I'd given over the years had been loans, and that I was now reneging on verbal agreements and causing them emotional distress and financial hardship by withholding support. My hands didn't shake. My breath didn't quicken. Instead, I laughed. Not the kind of laugh that feels good. The kind that leaks out when disbelief finally gives up and lets exhaustion take over. I'd been their daughter, their safety net, their silent donor. Now, I was a defendant. I took the envelope, walked to the small cafe down the street, and opened my laptop. I pulled up the contact Susan, my former manager, had sent me months ago. Carol Kim, attorney, civil defense, no nonsense. I emailed her everything: the scanned complaint, my notes, the spreadsheet labeled family contributions, not loans, and the folder of digital bank statements. She called back within 10 minutes. "They don't have a case," she said without hesitation. "No contracts, no signed agreements, no loan terms. This is textbook harassment." I was quiet for a beat. "Can we counter?" I asked. "Yes," she said. "We could go after them for emotional distress, defamation, even financial damages. You'd win." I didn't reply right away. The thought of suing my own parents? Part of me recoiled. But another part, the part that had sat quietly through years of being drained, wanted to say yes. Still, I didn't. "I don't want their money," I finally said. "I just want them gone." A pause. Then Carol's voice, softer now. "Understood." I ended the call, tucked the envelope into my bag. And in that moment, I knew. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was liberation. That weekend, I started packing. Not because of the lawsuit. Not because of fear. But because there was nothing left to stay for. I'd already signed the lease on a quiet apartment 2 states away, close to water, farther from memory. It wasn't a fresh start, not exactly. Just a clean one. I opened boxes that once held photos, holiday ornaments, and birthday cards from people who now called me emotionally harmful. Some I kept. Most I didn't. I picked up a frame, a picture of the 4 of us from a beach trip years ago. I stared at it long enough to realize I couldn't remember the last time any of us laughed like that without expectation attached. I set it down face first in the donation pile. I moved through the apartment like someone moving through a museum of her own life, carefully, quietly, leaving notes on what to discard and what to carry forward. Old baking pans, toss. Sweaters mom bought, donate. The financial binder under the sink? Keep. By Sunday morning, all that was left were clean floors, empty shelves, and a single suitcase. The rest, I left behind. I got one more call, a number I didn't recognize. I answered before I could stop myself. "Are you really doing this?" Evan's voice strained, already on edge. "You're just leaving?" "I already left," I said. "You just didn't notice." "I could lose everything," he said again like a broken record. "The apartment, my license, I'll have nothing." "I already have nothing," I said softly. "No trust, no family, just a lifetime of being used." Silence. Then, "I was scared," he admitted. I nodded, though he couldn't see. "I know," I said. "But fear doesn't excuse using someone." Another pause. "I didn't mean to hurt you. You didn't think about me at all." He sighed. "Please, Athena, please." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. "I told you before," I said. "Don't beg me. Beg someone else." And I ended the call. No texts followed. No emails. They must have realized the door had closed. The new apartment was nothing special. 2 bedrooms, a small balcony, faint scent of fresh paint, and the ocean on good days. But it was mine. No one had ever been here. No one knew the address. No one had a key but me. I set my one suitcase down in the hallway. There was no welcome party, no family dinner, no casseroles in the oven. Just silence. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of it. I slept that night like a stone, no buzzing phone on the nightstand, no mental checklist of bills to cover or people to save. Just stillness. The next morning, I opened my laptop and drafted a mission statement. Something I'd been thinking about for months back, when I still believed I had to choose between freedom and compassion. A nonprofit. Small. Focused. To help people, mostly women, reclaim financial independence from families who saw them only as wallets with faces. I called it Second Ledger. Because sometimes the real accounting doesn't happen in numbers. It happens in boundaries, in silence, in finally saying, enough. That week, I got one final letter. A handwritten envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. Athena, I'm sorry. Not just for the money, or the way we planned it, but for never seeing you as more than someone who could fix things. You deserved better. I hope one day you'll forgive us. Mom. I read it twice. Then I folded it neatly and slipped it into a drawer. Not to keep, just not to carry. I didn't write back. Instead, I stepped out onto the balcony, coffee in hand, hair unbrushed, sun on my skin. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't broken. I was just done. Done performing. Done apologizing. Done shrinking to fit inside someone else's definition of love. Some people will only love you as long as you're useful. The moment you stop giving, you stop existing to them. And that's okay. Because now, finally, I exist to me.